Hello and welcome. I'm Ari Lax, and this week we have one of the kind of hot new decks to come out of the top 8 of Grand Prix Las Vegas. This is Daniel Wong's Taking Turns deck. So I know Daniel's been on this deck for a while. He was actually on it at Grand Prix Dallas, which was late last year. I was rooming with him and Ben Whites and Neil Oliver. I got to take a look at the deck then, and then he ended up 9-0ing day 1 of Grand Prix Vegas, and then making top 8 after beating me in day 2 as well. Losing to Affinity in top 8 in some brutal fashion, but this deck actually seems like it is getting better and better as time goes on. So to generally talk about what's going on here, you are a slower combo deck, but you have pretty heavy control elements. And importantly, one of the things this deck offers that other combo decks don't necessarily have is Thoughtseize resistance. So one of the things this deck does that's really, really powerful is that it has cards that make Thoughtseize not a magic card. You can't really Thoughtseize through Howling Mind, Dictate Crucifix, or Miko Koro, wherever it's hanging out. It's just too hard. They're just going to draw another piece of action. So that is really the edge that this offers. So we've got our card drawing engines going on here. We got Serum Visions because you do need the selection. You do have different pieces you want. You have this for interaction. You've got one of the things this deck can do is utilize pitch spells effectively because you have excess cards and sometimes too many of them are too clunky. So there's a mix of pitch spells. Snapcasters, really to flashback Fatal Pushes in a lot of spots, but also you can flashback Exhaustions, Cryptic Commands. And then Fatal Push is just the best way to slow down opposing decks. Previous lists of this deck have been other splashes, but Push is just by far the best. We've got the true Time Warps, Temporal Mastery part, and Time Warp itself. Time Warp's the best because it's the cheapest. Part is your eventual win condition, but it's really eventual. And Mastery is just kind of there because my sometimes. And then the Pseudo Cryptics. Exhaustion is the... It's conditional. It's kind of hard to set up, but the fact that it's efficient lets you do multiple things in a turn. It's easy to cast Howling Mind and Exhaustion in the same turn, for example. Unfortunately, these pseudo time walks, by the way, are the ones that let your opponent abuse the Howling Mind effects slightly. Giga Drowse is one of the more powerful ones because it lets you position. You can position a Giga Drowse early in the game to get an effective time walk earlier. You can do a lot of other cool things with it. You can use it to protect, like as a protection spell that's uncounterable. You tap all your opponent's lands and start going off. You can tap your Howling Mine on their upkeep to prevent them from drawing a card on their draw step because Howling Mine has the old school, what's the name for it? Old school artifact. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the, like, there was like Poly, Mono, and in Alpha. There was a third type of artifact that specifically had rules text that was like, if it's tapped, it doesn't work. Which is why you see cards like this and Winter Orb have that text. And then you have Cryptic Command, just a great card. It's also an answer. Great with Snapcaster because you can bounce your own Snapcaster. Just does everything. So the end game of this deck is you just kind of get a bunch of lands into play, take a bunch of turns while drawing extra cards, and then eventually win. It's not too complicated. The lands, you're very heavy on basic islands. Your fetchable lands are heavily based towards islands. Don't ask why there's a snow-covered island. There just is. Sunken Hollow is there, so you have a painless way to fetch. You have so many basics that often this card's just untapped, and you're not too concerned by the time that you care about your mana. There's still a Watery Grave in case you need to do something on one, like Push or Visions. And then you have the unfetchable lands, mostly Drowned Catacomb. There's two Sunken Hollows that if you draw one, you can still fetch the second. There's situations where you do want double, or just like Push, Snap, Push. You could like cast. There's just spots where you want to have access to another black mana. So you do want two fetchable untapped black sources instead of the fourth Drowned, which is strictly better than Sunken in this deck because all your basics are islands, besides the fetchable part. And then the colorless lands are mixed. The best ones are the legendary ones, but you never want to draw multiple legendary ones because you are trying to get up to 8, 9 mana in this deck. You do need to put all your lands on the battlefield. So there's just a random Inkmoth Nexus that probably doesn't need to be here, but can be. It is a way through stuff like Infinite Life, kind of Phyrexian Life, but you should kill them if they go down that road. Moving to the sideboard, you've got Affinity Hate. Matchup's probably still not great. Thing in the Ice and Tassiger to kind of punish decks that are paying a bunch of life, and also Thing in the Ice is really good against decks that might be able to clog up the board and make your Time Walk plan. It's harder to establish a clear position for it. EE just kind of sweep random stuff. Chalice against the 1-drop heavy decks. Thoughtseize against combo, and same with Brutality, just ways to pick out cards from their hand. Brutality also double duties against the collected company decks. Then another Commandeer as a free counter spell. So I'm interested to see how this deck goes. One thing that Daniel brought up when I talked to him was that one of the key plays is understanding that you don't need or often want to slam a Howling Mine or on turn 2, and sometimes even a Dictate on 3. If your hand is set up to the point that the concern is giving your opponent extra resources, you can wait, give them the least number of extra draws, and then go off. So like you can Howling Mine plus do something else on a turn. Howling Mine plus Exhaustion on 5 is common, or something like that. Howling Mine plus short Giga Drowse. So yeah, I'm excited to give this deck a go, and it should be fun.